part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Look up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane,
This is Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action.
This is Mark Wade, writer of Superman Birthright.
You're listening to The Krypton Report.
Welcome to the Krypton Report. It is I, your host, Tyler, the man of coughing, and with me is James, Superman Red Cole. What's up, buddy?
As of late, I mean, you're not wrong. You cannot get rid of that damn thing.
No, and the worst part is, like, I've had it for about a month now, and just after all day of, especially when I get home and I have to yell at my kids, it just gets worse. So, but it's getting better. You wouldn't think that. Okay, so we got some news. We're gonna bust it in right here. We have our Supergirl. Millie Alcott has been cast as Supergirl. And if you're like, who's Millie Alcott? Well, I only know her as the young Rhaenyra from House of Dragons, which came out like 2 years ago. It feels
I think is when it started. Yeah.
It feels like it. It's going to be another year or something before it comes back. I don't know. After a while, everything runs together. But, yeah. So she wasn't my choice, but I wasn't against her. Janelle said what she liked about her was she doesn't have that normal classical beauty look to her that you would expect. For someone to be.
I can see that. Yeah. More of an exotic look.
She has an interesting, where her face is shaped and everything is a little bit more untraditional.
Yeah, usually when people say like traditional and non-traditional, I'm like, yeah, I usually go with the exotic route,
you think about
features are just a little different, a little sharper, a little
square jaw line for men, ruggedly handsome, not us. So
that's why I got a beard.
Yeah, that's how we hide it.
It's like makeup.
But she played the young Rhaenyra in like the first couple of episodes before they just completely aged the characters up. So yeah, and she was fine in that, but I mean, the show, like I said, it came out in 2022, in late 2022. So I mean, they were filming that before, so she's grown as an actress, and I said that like the Supergirl or Superwoman, Woman of Tomorrow story, whatever, because they've changed her to be more Superwoman in the comics and stuff. I felt like it needed an older Supergirl. Like I felt like it needed a Supergirl that was 30s because of just how that was like a later story. It wasn't a young story. But we'll see. We'll see if they'll actually make a 1-to-1 translation or they'll just, roughly base her movie on it. But okay, cool. We have Supergirl. That's cool.
Yeah, that's more what I anticipate, honestly, is adaptation, inspiration. Or less adaptation, more inspiration.
One thing is people have asked, is she going to be in Superman Legacy? And James is going to be coy with it. I wouldn't mind just seeing her in a post-credit scene with Superman in Superman Legacy. Just to tease and finally see the two together. I mean, we've never had Superman and Supergirl on the big screen together.
Yeah.
I don't count The Flash.
That was two computer generated people. It was two computer drawings. It was not people.
So we've had it on the small screen, but never on the big screen. So I would like to see them in a post-credit scene or something. So that's the biggest one. The second one is John Murphy is to score Superman Legacy. Now, it's kind of divisive, I'm going to say. John Murphy, his score for Sunshine gives me hope for Superman Legacy. I started re-listening to his score for Guardians 3. It's okay. His score for The Suicide Squad's a mixed bag. And I say that because his score for The Suicide Squad, and I know like he engineered it his way, it seems like a band that's like in their garage making a demo tape to find a singer. Like it just because it seems very stripped down for most of it. And I don't know, like I'm not against it. Years ago I wanted Michael Giacchino to score a Superman film just because Giacchino's sensibilities when he did the Jurassic World film was very in line with John Williams. And of course, we know he's out there doing Batman. And I think having different composers do Batman and Superman is important. So we know that James Gunn likes to keep all the same people. So John Murphy's done his past 2 films. Also, the cinematographer Superman Legacy did The Suicide Squad and The Flash. And Guardians 3. And I like the colors in those films, to be honest. So I am kind of excited for the cinematography because that's one thing I really liked about Superman Returns was more of the bright colors. And so, but yeah, John Murphy, his main theme from Sunshine is one of my all-time favorite pieces of music. And yeah, I'm pretty excited. It featured in Kick-Ass. It was the music. It was featured in Kick-Ass in the scene where Big Daddy is dying and burning up, and Hit Girl's killing everybody.
Yeah.
And it also was the music that played during the really weird scene in Wonder Woman 1984, where she's learning to fly. So, just for some reference for people.
Gotcha.
But, any thoughts before we move on, Sir Cole? You've now been knighted part of the round table.
Yeah. And I appreciate that, good sir. I mean, so Millie, I haven't seen House of Dragons, so I really have no.
Just go check out the first 2 episodes because I think those are the only 2 she's in.
That's what I heard was only 2 episodes. Unfortunately, I've only held off on watching it because I have never finished Game of Thrones.
Doesn't matter. It's a prequel,
right?
When you should watch House of Dragons, then Game
of Thrones, right?
So, I mean,
makes sense. Yeah, actually, I could probably dive right in.
Like I said, just watch the first 2 episodes with her just to get a sense. Because I was looking at some of her other stuff, and I'm like, there's nothing really. I was like, oh, I'd watch that.
I mean, it's fantastical. You know what I mean? Like, is she believable in a world that is unbelievable?
Yeah, I mean,
like
it also comes down to you feel like she's strong and she's grown enough where you think that she can hold like her presence. Like I always like to sample. Like I watched Hollywood on Netflix to see David Cornsweet, and I guess there's another Netflix thing that he's part of called The Politician that I might watch just to see him. He got a small part in Pearl. I'd watched that before. So I like to see the actors in something, and I had already seen Rachel in Miss Maisel. And of course, Nicholas Hoult, I've seen in a bunch of crap.
Oh, yeah.
And so
I was like, he's the most seasoned one on the roster.
I mean, yeah. But all right, we got some other weird, cool stuff to talk about. You ready?
2 thumbs up.
He's like, God. I was going to say something, but no, this isn't our Patreon show, so I can't really say it. So
something new. We can see each other now.
I know. We're
I give him 2 thumbs up. Like
it's weird.
Audio medium.
I'm still getting used to like we'll start posting videos and stuff later. But like I'm so used to like focusing on my notes and looking, at my notes and stuff, and not looking at you. But now like I'm like. So
I can talk to you.
I know I can talk to you, so it's weird. I just have a bad habit I got to break with that just because I'm used to doing other things while we're working. So last month we wrapped up with our crossover with Brian the Guys of the DCEU. Well, today we're talking about the DC that was never. And we're just going to kind of go through things. We'll talk about what we know. It's not a huge deep dive, but it's just kind of like hey, this was something that was mentioned. And we're going to talk about basically every announced DC project that never happened that I could find something on. We have TV series and movies. And then we have a small category called the So Close, which were ones that like started or in some sort of production or something. And we'll kind of talk about them last just because we've probably touched on them somewhere here and there before. So, excuse me. What would you like to start with first, Mr. Cole? Would you like to do TV series or movies?
I guess let's start with TV.
Okay. So here we go. And these are in no order. They're just kind of how I found them. And I pulled these, and it's been a while since I pulled these because we were going to do this before. But we thought, you know what? After the DCEU ended, as we're gearing up to start something new, let's kind of take a look back at what we were teased. The first up is called Hero U. This was the Diggle show that was mentioned. And it was going to be on the CW, and it was going to be basically, it sounded like, you know, what was that third or second spinoff from the Vampire Diaries? I cannot remember the Legacies or Legend, or I don't know. It was something where it was feeling like the one dude started a school.
Right.
Alaric started a school. I only watched the Vampire Diaries for like the first 3 seasons. And
I only watched some of was it the originals?
And then we watched like the first half of the originals, the first season of the originals. And it was like, much like we talked about in Supernatural Report, our new Patreon spinoff show, is once the DC TV really took over on everything, a lot of my other stuff just kind of fell away. If the story got dumb and repetitive, I was done. And that's what happened with the Vampire Diaries. But yeah, so Diggle was going to unite and find heroes and teach them at a school. That got like kind of mentioned, and that really was it. That was all. Now, would you have watched the show, James?
I mean, I'd have checked it out. I'm sure I would not have been like excited for it unless, you know, they gave us a trailer and Diggle was wearing a freaking ring.
Yeah, if Diggle was Green Lantern,
flying around, yeah.
But for the most part, like my rule was always a pilot. The second one was the way they tried to do the Black Lightning spinoff of Painkiller. They even did that backdoor pilot in the last season of Black Lightning, which translates to waste of time and money. I'm like, this was at a time, instead of giving us real heroes and shows, they started trying to pull like the D and E listers and give them shows and series. And I would not have watched this one.
Or just create new characters and try to make a series with a random brand new somebody just pulled out their butt because they wanted a show, because they wanted a show based there, but they didn't want to do a show with an actual character.
Yeah.
That people had any expectations for.
So yeah, I would have passed on that one. Did you ever watch the backdoor pilot that was on Black Adam or Black Lightning?
I have not finished Black Lightning, that final season.
The only show that I did not finish, my rule, as I stated before, is I'll always watch the pilot. I could not get past the pilot on Naomi. Couldn't do it. And I think I still have the last few episodes of Doom Patrol to finish. Because I keep forgetting it's there.
Yeah, I started part I watched the first half of part 4.
Yeah, so did I. And then it took forever to drop the second half. And I started the first episode, and I kind of was like, wait, what the hell just happened last year?
I was really just thinking about getting on and watching the rest of Doom Patrol today. Like, yeah. I was like, I want to finish that, like, because I love that show.
It hit me as I was
no matter
driving.
how crazy it got.
But that was the fun of it. Like, I was driving, I was like, oh yeah, Doom Patrol is a thing still. The next one was Green Arrow and the Canaries. Now, when they announced this, it was going to be a spinoff from Arrow with his daughter as the Green Arrow, and it was going to have who was Black Canary, Dinah, and it was going to have the other Earth, Laurel, and they were going to be the Canaries.
Yeah.
And they did a backdoor pilot for this during the final season of Arrow, And once again, it made no sense, and it wasted an
Well,
episode and time.
yeah. I mean, wasted episode and time. It wasn't actually a horrible episode itself. But with only having 10 episodes, it being the final season, and the final season basically being like a hype train for Crisis most of the season, or at least half of the season, like it was a waste. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they just
It was
Arrow wasn't Arrow. Arrow was universe hopping.
And
It was.
let's not even get started on that final season. The final season of Arrow should have been a form of hard traveling heroes, is what it should have been. It should have been Diggle and Oliver doing stuff. But no, they wasted a whole episode with that backdoor pilot, which backdoor pilots never seem to work. Like, we'll talk more about that, but like, can we name anything that's worked for backdoor pilots? No. And we move on. Remember the Wonder Girl series we were supposed to get for CW? And this was when they talked about it. And it sounded like it was going to be more of what eventually became the new Wonder Girl in the comics.
Yeah, Yara Flor.
Yeah. It was announced they were developing it, and that's really all we ever had of that. It was going to be another CW project. I'm trying to do all the CW stuff first, even though on my list here, they're not grouped together because I'm an idiot and didn't do that. They also announced they were going to do the Amazons. Now, this was announced, if I remember correctly, sometime after Smallville, before, like early on. It was like before the Arrowverse really was a thing. They were going to do the Amazons. I think this was around the Smallville time. It wasn't going to be a Wonder Woman show, but it was going to be an Amazon show, because that's what everybody really wants. It's just like how we all want a show about something that's not what we want,
A Batman show without Batman.
Batwoman, Titans, all these adjacent Batman shows, but not Batman.
Yeah. Batwoman with Ryan Wilder, who is not a Batwoman.
It was made up because we need a character because our Batwoman left, and then we're going to bring in that character again, and then instead of just recasting like they should have, but whatever.
Oh my God. And they picked who I picked.
Yeah.
They brought in exactly who I said they should, who would have been a great pick to play her, who would have made the transition easy. They could have just kept going, and she even looked more like a sister to frickin' Alice than Ruby Rose did. And
yeah, Ruby Rose.
And then they brought her in.
that person who was on the rise in movies and then got this TV series was a big deal, then left to go do movies, who has not done anything. When was the last thing you saw Ruby Rose in?
Batwoman.
All right. Remember,
does rewatching Resident Evil the final chapter count?
I mean, rewatching. I rewatched the Meg. She was in that.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah,
and
we
John
did
Wick
watch that
2.
not that long ago.
In 2014,
it's been a little while since I watched John Wick 2.
In 2014, they were going to do a Static Shock series on the CW, and that didn't happen. And then back in 2003, my friend, they were going to do on the CW The Flash. And that didn't happen. And then that's part of that whole development thing where they were going to do a Flash movie. And then Impulse showed up on Smallville. So that's all of my what could have been TV on the CW. Rest in peace, shows that should have never been made. We're kind of glad. Like, there's none of those shows that I announced that I would have been like, yeah, except maybe The Flash in 2003. But other than that, everything else.
I would have been cool with a Static show. I mean, an Amazon show would have been kind of cool, but it probably would have been more reminiscent of Xena.
I mean, it just depends on when they set it,
Right.
If they're just gonna make it on it just all depends on where they put the settings. And I think about other shows I've seen on the CW, just how their budgets have been and stuff. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Period show like the Amazons. I mean,
well, there's that Western that
where they have to make everything.
They tried to do the Walker Western prequel on the CW. it had what's her name who was Mia, the Green Arrow, Kate
Okay.
Magdenberg or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just saying, like the CW's budgets just started shrinking. All right, now let's get into some random stuff. In 2000, TNT was going to do Dead Man. Why?
Wow. Yeah, no, that I have no idea. I remember when TNT was the place Titans was going to go.
Yeah, I do too. TNT used to be the best movie studio on television. They used to actually make cool, like, direct TNT movies.
Yeah.
They did an amazing James Dean biopic starring James Franco right before he did Spider-Man. It is amazing. Some of Franco's best work. So yeah, there was that. Let's see here. I guess there's really no great order. So Booster Gold was being talked about in 2011 for the Sci-Fi Channel. That did not happen because the Sci-Fi Channel just started to suck after Battlestar Galactica.
Yes, sir.
Sci-Fi Channel proposed doing a Lobo spinoff of Krypton, and then a Lobo and Crush. So those two kind of roll in together, but those never happened. I don't really know if I could do a Lobo series, like as a TV series. Like it'd be one of those shows that you'd have to build a really good cast around the character. Like he'd have to have good secondary characters to really help carry the weight for me to want to watch what a show should be.
Yeah. I mean, a bounty hunter show would be pretty awesome. I mean, we've had a couple pretty good ones, and I mean, Mando is
I mean,
pretty strong.
But also look at the world Mando's in and the type of character he is.
Yeah. And they've transitioned a little bit off of that bounty hunter angle for
Mando's just
part of the show.
Becoming the show that connects all facets of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Prequels, sequels, main trilogy, like Mando pulls it all together.
I just rewatched the freaking second season finale.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, that is good.
I know. Star Wars, baby.
Damn, that is good.
We gotta do some Star Wars
that is the
freaking
Luke that they say is the same one in
Return of the
goddamn Last Jedi. You kidding me?
I mean, that's Luke how many years removed, in Last Jedi? We're looking at least. It's only been 5 years during Mando.
Luke wouldn't fight his father. He knew he could bring him back over. He would not do what they put him in there to do. The exile was stupid, and then the reason they made him go to exile, I'm going to go to exile so I can die alone, but I'm going to leave you a map to find me.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about that later.
Come on.
This is not the podcast for that, James. This is not the podcast for that.
Okay.
When we do our Star Wars watch, just because we'll get bored and rewatch them all this year. Because honestly, the Krypton Report, we always talk in DC and stuff, and we're going to take this year and be a little lighter because next year is going to be so super heavy. Because I have stuff planned to revisit and really heavy with the Superman Legacy coming. Next year is going to be so super heavy. Okay, so now we're going to mention this one. Remember Metropolis when it was announced to be a DC Universe original? Mm-hmm. And it was the only show announced as a live action show on DC Universe that never happened. I think all the other ones that were announced came to fruition.
All that I can think of: Titans, Doom Patrol, Stargirl, Swamp Thing.
Mm-hmm. Metropolis, we all speculated it was going to be what it was going to be, and they never really officially said what it was going to be. But yeah, that never happened. Now to our favorite place that no longer technically exists, HBO Max is going to do a Black Canary series with Journey Smollett.
I would have watched that,
but it also could have been a movie. Like they said, it was being produced or created. It was going to be a series or a movie, so it's kind of in that to go. And they were looking at 2021, and that's when it was announced, and that never happened. Red Hood was going to get his own spinoff from Titans on HBO Max. That never happened. None of this never happened. It's just fun to say. Green Lantern, the J.J. Abrams produced HBO Max series that had only cast Finn Whitlock as Guy Gardner. That never happened.
The only person cast in the whole show.
So that's all the TV properties that were announced that never came to fruition. So now we're going to talk about some movies.
Yeah, it's crazy because a lot of this stuff was talking about they wanted to go into production and things like that. Not just like we have an idea for this. It was like, yeah, we want to do this. We're going to do this.
So the first one under movies from Warner Brothers Pictures is the J.J. Abrams Superman, which I'm taking off our list because James Gunn said they're still talking to him about developing that as an Elseworlds. So I'm taking that off for now. The other one on my list, because they talked about still developing it, was Constantine 2. So that's getting removed. Now, let us talk about films. The Superman with Michael B. Jordan, which wasn't the same as the J.J. Abrams one. That was announced. Everyone automatically assumed it was Val Zod. Then it disappeared.
That is the one that I wanted to see.
I like Val Zod as a character, and they just did the Black History Month issue, and I read that, and there was a Val Zod short in it on the app.
I have to go.
He's one of those characters that I wish would get his own book, or in this new Superman like action, like in the backups and stuff, he would have his own story because there's no really good continuing Val Zod story.
Yeah,
and I think it'd be a very interesting character to work with.
Yeah, I mean, he was a really good character to read in Earth 2, in the Earth 2 books, and I was really excited for his return come John Kent that Tom Taylor is writing, but he's put his butt into the Phantom Zone.
Yeah, let's not even go down that because I was thinking like this would be awesome. John Kent with Val Zod, we're on this journey, and that was just see, that's how much it's making me cough. All right, Catwoman with Michelle Pfeiffer. Back in 1992, this was announced, and then eventually it was developed into Catwoman with Halle Berry. That made no damn sense.
It would have made more sense if they would have done it with Michelle Pfeiffer, because like
in 1993
would have been the flashback, you know,
they would have made it in 93.
It was already there, and you just have a movie now instead of having to have an origin story.
Or you did it in 93, or if you would have done it later with Michelle Pfeiffer, and it was like she was coming out of retirement type thing, and like she was do kind of one of those like some young kid learns who she is as the neighbor, then she has to come out of retirement type quick stories, you know, and there's the Catwoman, and then at the end of the movie, after Catwoman's come back as this kind of anti-hero, Batman shows up, and it's just like someone in the Michael Keaton suit from the back, and that's like boom, that's how it ends or something, kind of like a reverse of how Batman Returns ended with her popping up. Like it's kind of like you see Catwoman in the distance, and then Batman stands up. Boom, I just wrote the movie for you. All right. Now, this is where it gets fun because this is where we get into like the ka-ching of all the stuff that should have been in the DCEU. The Harley Solo film, when it was really supposed to be just a Harley movie. I would have loved to have seen Margot Robbie just in a Harley film, though I don't know exactly what that would be because I feel like the Harley film would have worked better had it been the announced David Ayer Gotham City Sirens. That's the movie I wanted to see.
Yeah. You could have really introduced the Birds of Prey in a Gotham City Sirens movie.
It should have been the Gotham City Sirens versus the Birds of Prey. You would have got your first female heroes and villains team up film, and it would have been awesome.
And they could have even still teamed up against badass Black Mask.
You could have had Black Mask as kind of this antagonist on both sides. You have the Sirens.
Misogynists.
Yes. It would have been a great film.
Oh, absolutely.
And then the other Margot Robbie announced Harley Quinn movie, the Harley and Joker film, that would have kind of been like a mad love and really filled in their story. And we all know what happened. None of those three got made. We got Birds of Prey.
After they hacked the crap out of Suicide Squad.
So out of those three, the Gotham City Sirens is the one I really would have wanted, because I would love to have a movie like that where it would have been like the Birds of Prey would have included Batgirl and Canary.
Yeah.
And, you know,
They could have even had the same
Huntress
damn
and-
beginning, her getting kicked out by the Joker
And then she-
being
she
all
ends
on
up
her
with
own, and she ends up with
Poison Ivy.
Harley Ivy and Selena.
Yeah. And boom, we could have had that. And
Freaking neat. So like,
we could have it just, yeah. So that one's the one that really bugs me. And then you could have incorporated some more backstory of the Joker in that film. But once again, the reactionariness of everything kind of killed it. Nightwing.
well, it did kill it. We're dead. It's dead.
I mean, yeah.
It's got to be something new. It has to be
You know,
something new now.
We were supposed to get the Nightwing film. I remember when this was announced, and one of the people they were talking about for Nightwing was Adam Driver. And this is like, I mean, this is back. It's before like Adam Driver was Kylo Ren.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, who's this guy? And then they announced it was going to be Chris McKay as the director, and we were going to get a Nightwing film. And I was like, that's pretty sweet, because Nightwing has a great story that you could just kind of jump into and kind of work backwards to tell, like that he used to be Robin, but him becoming Nightwing is a really good starting point. That one hurts. I know it hurts Phil a lot too, but that would have been a great film. And then, of course, we don't have to talk much about this little movie called Batman, or The Batman, that was supposed to be the Ben Affleck Batman, Batfleck film, however we want to call it now. We've talked about that a lot. This one hurts.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, just the people who are on board. You know, some of the performances we got from those people, even a little bit from Deathstroke, and just some of the people in the background saying, you know, it was one of the best scripts that they've ever read.
I wish it would leak, man. I don't think it has, but I wish it
Yeah,
would.
Right.
So I would love to read that script. Or I just say animate it in a high quality, and have Affleck and have everyone do the voices.
Mhm.
You know. Now the Batman Beyond film, okay, had been talked about multiple times, was kind of announced, and then was going to be put in production had the Flash done well, and Michael Keaton would have been in Batman Beyond. But that didn't happen. The next movie on the list is a
Flash
what?
would have had to done hella well for them to.
It would. I mean, I wonder how well it would have had to do in the market landscape that we were in last year.
Yeah.
So, but let's
I
ask
mean,
about
When
the
it
movie-
was originally supposed to come out. Now, when I say originally, I don't know, because that's still a couple of years.
2000 wasn't it supposed to be originally? 2018,
Yeah.
right after Justice League. Just put the next movie after Justice League, But yeah, no. The next movie, the one that nobody wanted or asked for, the first movie that David Zaslav cut, Wonder Twins.
Wonder Twins.
No. This is definitely your made for streaming direct film, but it's like with all the characters you have, the Wonder Twins you're going to try to sell me? No.
Yeah. That was pretty ridiculous, and I think the Wonder Twins, they sit in the comics, the small screen, and I think the biggest thing we got for the Wonder Twins and all that recently was back when they did the Hall of Justice on the Flash, and he had the Gleek tease. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the tease, and everybody was just like, "Oh, that's cool." And
The Wonder Twins are okay to work on television as guest stars like they were in Smallville. That's where they need to stay.
yeah,
Next film, I think this would have been a really interesting film. But The Trench, which it also was going to be more of a Black Manta driven type film, produced by James Wan. This one, it kind of hurts, man. Like, this is one of those that I'm like, I would have liked to see this, because I think a full on more horror film with The Trench, and if you have Black Manta, who's usually our villain, as kind of our protagonist, as like the film could have been him you could have had him, and I think could even brought in Dr. Shen and made it more of like him exploring Atlantean lore and trying to learn more, and he has to go against the Trench. That could have been something very interesting, then leading into Aquaman 2 with where David Kane is. So the Trench kind of would have been nice, like, you know, especially what could have been, you know, we don't really know.
With James Wan on it, though, I mean, that's, you know, that's, especially if it's in the horror realm, people, that would have been awesome.
The next film, I wonder if people even remembered, at one time, they wanted to do a Black Hawks film with Steven Spielberg directing it.
Yeah.
I think if you were going to do a Black Hawks film, I think the people you should have got directed with Steven Spielberg or maybe Joe Johnston, because he knows how to pull that old school aesthetic. It could have been cool. It definitely would have been a very standalone film because it would have been, you know, set in the past and everything. But at the same time, I don't know how well it would have done unless you really just kind of tried to sell it as more of a World War II period. Piece. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The next film, oh man, this movie could have been something very interesting, but I wasn't sold on the director, was New Gods.
With Ava DuVernay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I was not sold with her. And but the concept of a New Gods film would have been really interesting.
Well, the concept was really, really cool. It was very interesting. It would have been, man, you know, it's otherworldly. You know, it's the characters, the archetypes, all those things. It would have been very different, but also like it was coming off the back of Justice League. And one of the characters that we got there from Apocalypse, Steppenwolf, had looked just horrible. It was like, so what would they have been going for after that?
Yeah, where would they have taken it? And I don't know, but I just don't feel like she was the right choice for that. The Green Lantern Corps film, you know, one of the films that was announced in that original slate of DC films in 2024. Green Lantern Corps was announced. I think it wasn't supposed to be a 2020 release.
I believe so. That sounds about right.
We never knew exactly what lanterns were in it. It was always kind of spinning around of who was going to be multiple lanterns. That's all we knew. Deathstroke, the movie. It's going to be a Joe Manganiello film. Wasn't sure if it was going to be a prequel or a sequel to The Batman. He looked amazing as Deathstroke. One thing with the Snyder Cut that I was a little bummed about is I had always heard that it was Deathstroke that came in and broke Lex out of Arkham. Yeah. And I thought that was a scene we were going to get. And it makes me wonder, was it never filmed? Or were they didn't put it in the Snyder Cut because it was something they didn't want because they maybe had a plan for it. But that was something in that movie. I think out of everything I had read about and heard about that was supposed to be in the Snyder Cut, I was fine with everything, but that was the one thing that kind of bothered me because I thought we were going to get a Deathstroke scene coming to get Lex.
Yeah. You know, I hadn't even thought about that, but yeah, that was something that they had talked about, at least that was storyboarded or whatever, that he was going to break Lex out of there. But all we got was the tease that it wasn't Lex.
Yeah, and then we saw him arrive on Lex's yacht. Then, of course, he was one of the characters that was included in the additional footage of the Nightmare stuff.
Yeah.
And then the last movie from the original slate was Cyborg. And then at one point it was going to be Cyborg in the Flash, or Cyborg was going to be in the Flash movie. And I think a Cyborg storyline that could have really worked was one I read in the comics where Cyborg's mother box tech actually started repairing his organics and he started to grow back. It was in the DC YOU when the latter part of the New 52 stuff started changing. I read that where it started to repair his organics, and then there were some issues and stuff. And I won't give the whole story. It's a good book, but I thought that'd be a cool way to go with his solo movie to bring him, to help him transform more from just being the very completely robotic to being a little bit more having his humanity. So, and the last one that was kind of part of that is Plastic Man. Remember they announced that they're going to do a Plastic Man movie, and then they talked about making it a female Plastic Man. And then
I'm pretty sure they talked about it making it animated at one point,
and then it just kind of disappeared. So that's another character that's been a really good kind of HBO Max streaming film. All right, now we're getting into some old stuff with the 2004-2005 David Goyer announced Flash film. This would have been the one that we talked with Ryan Reynolds was talked to be the Flash. Was one of the.
This would have been like right after he did Blade 2.
Yeah. Blade 3.
Writing Blade 2. Then
you mean Goyer? I meant Reynolds. Yeah, it was right around that time. Yeah. It was after Blade. That's probably what brought Reynolds into his foray. Was after doing Blade 3, because we know that Goyer directed Blade 3.
Yep.
And had a horrible time with Wesley Snipes. That's why Hannibal King, Ryan Reynolds got more lines and more screen time, is because Wesley Snipes didn't want to do anything. So they basically just gave it to Reynolds.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Was Blade.
Not much is known about that movie, but I think that script did eventually leak, and Goyer's talked about it and everything. And I wish we would have gotten it, because we still could have got what we got, but I'm interested. The other one, Green Arrow, Escape from Supermax. This was actually one that was being headed up years ago, and actually Kevin Smith had at one point wanted to direct it, and he had written it. And the idea was that Oliver Queen was sent into a Supermax prison with all of the villains in the DC universe, and then had to kind of break out. And I kind of thought that was interesting, because that was kind of an idea they used a little bit in season 6 of Arrow. I think it was season 6, maybe 7. I think it was 6.
I think
6 is good. 6 is good.
6 is good.
Because 5 was Prometheus. And I think it was after Prometheus when he got, arrested for murder or whatever. I don't know. I'll eventually do an Arrow rewatch, maybe.
No, I'm thinking I'm leaning towards 7.
Maybe it was 7.
I don't remember.
I mean, I don't either. After a while, because it just became all about Felicity. The next one was in 2005. They looked at doing a Zatanna film. And this one kind of bothered, because I always thought Zatanna is an amazing character. And I've always hated that she didn't appear anywhere. I mean, Smallville. But you didn't bring her in the Constantine series. You didn't bring her on Legends. You could have brought her into Arrow when you couldn't get John Constantine to be in the whole episode in season 4. You could have, instead of getting Vixen, when Oliver tried to go and find someone magical, he could have went and got Zatanna and recruited her for his team for that, the season 4 that made no damn sense.
Yeah.
So she's
at least the magician talking backwards would have made more sense.
But I mean, having someone magical on your team versus someone who's magical makes sense.
Oh, absolutely.
And then the last one I have here is Batman versus Superman. I have it twice. Okay. Because we have the Andrew Kevin Walker written Batman versus Superman, which was a 2007-2006 production, which I've listened to a audio drama on that on YouTube. There's a company that will do audio dramas based on the scripts, and and then we had the David Goyer Batman versus Superman that was going to be the follow-up to Man of Steel that Zack Snyder had rewritten with Chris Terrio. So we had two different versions of this Batman versus Superman film.
Huh.
And the Andrew Kevin Walker one was darker, of course, because it's Andrew Kevin Walker. But hold on. And then our last category, after our dark turn with Andrew Kevin Walker and his Batman vs. Superman, is called So Close. The first one on the So Close is Superman Flyby. We've talked about this on here before. We did a whole episode on it. It was the J.J. Abrams written script that got turned into Superman Returns, that whole cluster of when they were casting for Superman Flyby, but then the project turned into Superman Returns. There's a great documentary that a fan produced on YouTube I found about it. And it's just fascinating how they are building costumes and sets. And I'm pretty sure that the airplane rescue from Superman Returns was held over from, I don't know if it was Flyby or a different version of where the script changed into, because you had Superman Flyby turn into Superman Returns, and you had McGee as director of one of them, and then Bryan Singer, Superman Returns, and McGee was, I think, Flyby, because he was going to direct the Superman film, and then Brett Ratner went to X-Men 3 and Bryan Singer. So it's a very fascinating story. Stay with our boy Soups. Superman Lives, the Nick Cage Superman film directed by Tim Burton. We've done a whole episode on it, talked about it. I shared a thing with James recently, an interview with Nick Cage, where he talked about that he was on set for The Flash and he filmed scenes. And it was supposed to be him in costume, and it was Kal-El looking out. And he said he had no dialogue. That was all facial acting he did as Kal-El is watching these other worlds be destroyed. And he said he was on set, he was in the costume, and then what was in the film was nothing he did. And so I'm happy that the Nick Cage thing made it into The Flash. I just really wish it had actually been Nick Cage.
Yeah. I'm more happy that Nick Cage voiced Superman in Teen Titans Go to the Movies.
Yeah.
Than what appeared in The Flash.
In true Nick Cage fashion, I say, yeah. Once again, our boy Soups, Justice League Mortal. I want to do a whole episode on this more in depth. There was supposed to be a documentary that was being made. This was in 2007, when they really weren't concerned that, in 2005 there was Batman Begins, and in 2006 was Superman Returns. This is around 2007. They were getting in production. We got another strike. Everyone was cast. They were in Australia ready to film. And right before they go to film, they were shut down. There's been leaks about some costume test photos and everything, but we had DJ Catrona as Superman. He would later be Pedro, superhero Pedro in Shazam. Adam Brody, who would be superhero Freddy, was the Flash, but I think he was Wally West Flash. And there's going to be like two Flashes in the film. Armie Hammer was Batman. Megan, I'm drawing a blank. I can't think. Her name it's Megan. Something was going to be Wonder Woman. There is a picture of her in costume that came online. Just Google it, and she appeared in George Miller's Mad Max Fury Road. I can't remember who was Aquaman.
No, I'm drawing a blank on that one.
And I think wasn't it Common was Green Lantern John Stewart.
I think so.
Yeah, and Maxwell Lord was the villain, and it was Jay Baruchel as Maxwell Lord, which is very interesting. Jay Baruchel is one of those people. He voiced Hiccup for the How to Train Your Dragon films. He's been in a lot of movies with Seth Rogen.
Yeah.
So he played Windows and Fanboys. Yep.
Yep. This is the end.
Excuse me.
She's out of your league. She's out of his league. Something like that.
And then, as far as so close TV shows, was there's going to be a Wonder Woman show that produced a pilot with Adrian Pilecki. We've talked about that. It's just worth noting. Here with John Rockwell as Superboy. The Justice League of America pilot / TV movie that's never been released that, is horrible. Then we had Aquaman on the CW, which produced a pilot that never made it past the pilot with our good friend, the Green Arrow, Mr. Justin Hartley.
Yep.
And then the last one to mention.
It's easily accessible, though.
Yeah, that one I bought on iTunes. And I think it's streaming somewhere, too.
And I'm pretty sure it's on the Blu-ray set of Smallville, too, if you get that, if you have that.
I haven't bought the Blu-ray yet. I just have I'm trying to at least get something in physical.
Some of them out of it. Somebody out there has it. I'm not the only one.
I have the DVD set, and eventually I'll get my Blu-ray set. But
yeah.
And then the last thing to mention here, Batgirl, the movie that was filmed and then shelved, that's sitting on a server, or maybe even deleted, for all we know.
No,
the way movies are made digitally now.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It was made, it was shot. Like
and it was cheaper to just not release it and take a tax cut. It's hardcore.
Right.
But that's kind of our wrap up of just DC projects. And we can see that there was a boom, and DC had an issue of announcing things and then never happening. Like, oh, this is in development. And I hate always comparing things to Marvel, but the thing that Marvel did was they really wouldn't announce anything unless it was really ready to shoot, it seemed like. And it's only been the past couple of years that they've had issues when they started running into announcing something and it not happening. But it seemed like DC would be like, oh, we're going to do this. 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 And then as we saw, like there was a lot of projects that, I mean, we didn't even dive into, like, because we talked about like Batman Triumphant, which would have been or Unchained, it was later called, which would have been the technically Schumacher's third film.
Right.
Because I mean, that one we probably could have talked about, got canceled or just never came to more fruition. The other one, was the Batman Year One by Darren Aronofsky, which kind of got tweaked, changed, and rolled into Batman Begins. So,
yeah. I mean, there was a lot out there over the years. I think the thing just to kind of look at is, especially over the last decade, since they started putting out films and tried to build a world, tried to build a universe, and how reactionary it was, and if they would have built the world and started filling it out, they could have gotten a few more of these things out. But
so I think the biggest ones for me that I would have liked to have seen, I think Justice League Mortal, I think Superman Lives, Nightwing, and Gotham City Sirens. I think those are 4. So I had to pick 5. If I had to pick one more that I would have liked to have gotten out of there, probably Green Lantern Corps, just to see more Green Lantern stuff.
Yeah.
But let us know.
We can just hope that, moving forward, we've got so many announced right now that hopefully we get to see more of these produced. Hopefully all of them.
I mean, you're not wrong.
I mean, if we're starting over, I just hope to see a universe that, everybody has their place where they do things, but it's not, but they can come and go and cross over. somebody's in for a moment and then back out.
Yeah, we'll just have to, wait and see what happens, because I just don't announce anything till you're like really ready to do it. I guess that's my biggest thing. But let us know, listeners, what your favorite announced project was and what you would have wished would have happened. And yeah, send us a message, drop a comment, let us know. And remember,
Look up in the sky.
We just want to say, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please check out other podcasts on the Press Play Podcast Network.
If you are like Tyler and James and can't get enough Super Talk, check out these other podcasts. Digging for Kryptonite, Supergirl Radio, The Last Sons of Krypton, the Superboy Legacy Podcast, All-Star Superfans, Superman the Animated Podcast, The Aspiring Kryptonians, Always Hold On to Smallville, The Geek of Steel, and Truth, Justice, and Hope.
Remember to check out Krypton Report on all social media platforms. Go to linktree.com/Krypton Report to find out all of our information.
What's up, everybody? Chase Smith here from the Chase Smith Podcast and Cavs on the Break NBA Podcast.
And I'm JD, host of the Hyman Podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network, and we are super excited to bring you a brand new show starting next Tuesday, the Fanfare Podcast.
The Fanfare Podcast is all about your favorite movies and our favorite movies and the best moments in cinema. To help guide our discussion, each episode will feature one classic, and we will grade this movie using a report card-like scale A through F. We're going to be grading categories like acting, directing, cinematography, the score, and even the movie poster itself.
And when we're not featuring a movie report card, we'll be sharing our movie rankings, franchise deep dives, actor and director interviews, and everything in between. Movies have been a major part of our lives, and we cannot wait to share our thoughts with you.
Our premiere episode will drop Tuesday, June 27th, and JD and I will be reviewing Raiders of the Lost Ark in preparation of the release of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny on June 30th, the 5th installment of the franchise.
Join us on the Fanfare Podcast, available on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcast.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. Here's how Books with Brooks works. We read one book a month, and then we talk about it. Classics like Stephen King's The Shining, debut novels like We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lang, and tons of other compelling, life-changing stories, one book and 1 month at a time. So come read along with us, and then listen in.
Here at Krypton Report, we believe in the power of podcasting, the power of speaking your voice and speaking something that comes from you. So here's a couple of podcasts you can check out with people sharing their voice.
I am Brian Peters, the creator and host of Gravely Amusing. For the past 30 years, I've studied the history of gods and monsters in pop culture and our world. As a student of theology and history, I've tried to understand evil and its impact on us. As a writer, I've tried to share this knowledge. As a comedian, I've tried to make people laugh as I do it. But as a man-child, I'm still that scared 7-year-old boy. Join me as I share the history of horror and sci-fi, discuss classic and modern pop culture, and share a creepy story or two. This podcast may scare you, it may horrify you, or it may leave you gravely amused. Listen to Gravely Amusing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and wherever podcasts are found. Follow us on Twitter at Gravely_Amusing or on TikTok at Gravely Amusing.
Hi, I'm Taria Maynard, and this is my co-host, Jania Patrick. We're a couple of sisters in Central Ohio who created a podcast. Our podcast is called The Confessing Heretics.
The basic premise of the podcast right now, as we see it, is we're going to talk to you guys about our stories in religion, would you say?
This podcast is about sharing our truths, our religious traumas, and our histories. We'd love for you to join us on our journeys as we talk about our pasts and discover more about ourselves along the way. We will be featured on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Just look for The Confessing Heretics.
We have a $1 Patreon. Yes, I know everyone asks for money, but our $1 Patreon each month gets you commentary tracks for releasing movies, DC movies. It gets you my Requel series where I pitch ideas about movie sequels, prequels, or whatever. It also gets special bonus episodes of whatever else some of the friends of the network chime in and drop. So check that out for $1 a month. That's all we ask. Keep it cheap, keep it simple, and help us keep going. Check out the link in the show notes or Patreon, Krypton Report.
Follow the link in the link tree or in the show notes below, patreon.com/Krypton Report.
This is Dan Jurgens, and if you want to have a good time, keep listening to the Krypton Report.